Alright, so hi everybody, it's me, Jodie again. It's been a while since I fronted last, and I wanted to do another video because we haven't done any videos in recent while. So we've been very busy working on the van, and I was in a group working with a bunch of other people on Facebook talking about uh, good media representation of DID and all that sort of stuff. So I was telling people that you should watch these certain shows, and I decided that it'd probably be a good idea, right here at 12:44 a.m. night or in the morning, I guess, to tell everybody about all the good movies and what you call it, TV shows about DID and stuff. So I'll start with the bad ones. The worst one that I've seen so far has been Split. That's the very worst one that I've seen so far. But honestly, it's really not that bad. I've seen probably worse than that. I think. Actually, yeah, no, I have seen worse than that. The worst one that I've seen so far has been this movie called Hide and Seek, and this is why I'm starting from bad to good because there's so many bad ones. Um, Hide and Seek is a movie about this guy. Can't remember who plays him. He's just some dude, some guy, and he has a tragic accident. Well, his wife has a tragic accident, and she ends up dying. And he to cope with it, he and his daughter move out to like the middle of nowhere, and like obviously weird things start happening and people are dying, and it turns out it's his alter who's killing everybody because his alter is the daughter's imaginary friend. And yeah, so it's a twist ending. I ruined it for you, and I'm not sorry because this is for people who want to watch good representation of dissociative identity disorder, and that is a bad one. So that's your ruined ending. Don't watch that movie. It's called Hide and Seek. It's got Dakota Fanning in it, and the other guy, can't remember his name. And then another one would be Identity, and Identity is also a horror movie. You'd be surprised how many horror movies there are about us, people like us. Anyways, Identity is surrounds a character that moves to a small town, or he's actually trapped in a sort of like middle way of a town, and there's a bunch of other people there, and they all start dying and disappearing, and it turns out this is another twist ending because you can't have a psychological thriller without a twist ending where the main character is either the crazy evil alter or whatever. But the storyline is obviously the main character ends up being the alter, and the other alters are the people in that layway, and they're all being integrated or murdered by some like evil crazy child alter that's trying to take over the main, like the actual person. So it's interesting because it all takes place inside of the mind space, but it's all also unpleasant to watch. And so yeah. Another one would be um let's see. Another one would probably be Split. But I'm very split. Oh God, I didn't mean to do that, but I'm very split on my um what is it opinion on this, because for one, it does mildly accurately portray dissociative identity disorder. I mean, the main character obviously has trauma. He's got alters, and he he goes to a therapist, and they actually say like what the disorder is caused by, and like things that can happen when people have the disorder. But on the other side, he's got a crazy alter who kidnaps girls and eats them or feeds them more like to other people, well, other alters. And that is probably the thing that I just can't get into. It was, yeah. So if you don't mind being portrayed as a crazy person who also is a cannibal, then that has mild superpowers, then you'll be fine. You'll love that movie. I'm sure you'll just adore it. Let's see. We'll go with the next one being Me, Myself, and Irene. And I kind of like this movie. It doesn't really accurately portray dissociative identity disorder, but it does portray it as a disorder, and it does affect the main character negatively. It has what's his name, Jim Carrey, and he plays some guy. I'm gonna say Buck or Buff or whatever, Biff, and John. We'll say he plays the characters Biff and John, which are the two alters in the main character. And there's another actress, and I can't remember her name, and her character is obviously Irene. And it's a comedy, so I I like comedies. I like to poke fun at existing because it's funny, and also I hate myself. So was that door more open than it was before? Nope, I'm just hallucinating. Anyways, so it pokes fun at it, but not in like a depressing way. It's actually it makes out alters to be a little bit more humorous than we are, which of course we can always be very humorous when we do crazy, silly things, and that's probably my favorite thing about it. And it also shows that the main character has a very strong support system, which I really enjoyed. It's something that doesn't you don't really get to see in a whole lot of DID media, and he does end up integrating, which is probably my least favorite thing about movies like this, because the ones that tried accurately portray it, they end up integrating the system before, at least by the end of the movie, and you're just sat there like, well, that doesn't have to be the end for everything. You don't have to do that all the time. Well, that's where we're going to come into the next one. The next one I'm going to say is Sybil. It's an alright movie. Came out in like the 80s, I think, and it surrounds the actual story of, I want to say, Chalet something, but the character's name, for sake of changing the name of the actual person, her name is Sybil Dorset, and this is more of a more factually accurate movie. It's probably one of the first ones. It was the first one that I saw that was actually factually accurate for the most part, and it is about that actual person who actually existed. It can be pretty traumatizing and triggering if you've never seen any movies like that, or you've never seen somebody else act in the way of what it would be like having dissociative identity disorder. Granted, these are all movies, so they're all going to be a little bit more dramatized than they really need to be, and that will just come with everyone. Every movie will always be more dramatized than it needs to be, and that's just because people in real life, you don't really notice very many switches. I mean, unless people have accents or they act very childish, or but a lot of times regular folks out there don't notice that you've switched or anything like that. And so in movies, they want to make it very obvious so that the viewer can notice, even though the main character may or may not notice. So I like this one because For one, it delves into that trauma caused the disorder, which me, myself, and Irene did not do, and Split did, but also turned it into a murder thing. So yeah, and Identity did not even go into, and um, Hide and Seek kind of went into, but not in depth enough for me, for my personal enjoyment. And um, so that's why I like this movie. It was the first one that we saw too, so we kind of have a little bit of a love for it. Um, it's also based off of a book called Sybil, obviously, and you can read it probably online. You can probably get it on ebooks or something, but I've never actually read the book. And the next one that I'm gonna do is going to be probably my second favorite, and that is United States of Tara. And you can actually watch this on Hulu. So Hulu has the all three seasons, and I really like this series mostly because it's very factually accurate. It, the main character Tara, she deals with trauma, she deals with flashbacks, she deals with dissociation and switching and amnesia. She deals with all of that, but it also delves into the ableism and the effects that it has on the family dynamic, which kind of is a double-edged sword for a lot of people, especially us. We personally don't have any kids, and we don't have any intention of having any kids because we're kind of afraid to have kids. We don't want to end up making them like us. That'd be awful. I'd feel really bad about it. So we're just gonna swear that off forever. Maybe adopt when they're like 12 or something and can't be broken as badly or broken at all. So I really enjoyed that series because of the family dynamic, and Tara has a support system, but you really get to witness how her illness affects her and her family, and how that support system is kind of not always there, and sometimes it's very hard, and that is really important, especially if you've got family or friends or a partner who is also um, dissociative, or maybe they're not, they're a neurotypical person, and they want to know, like, hey, what am I up for? Of course it's dramatized, so it's extra, way extra, and so you don't you, the switches are very obvious, that every character, every author changes their clothes and everything, when in reality that's not really how that works. They do a lot crazier things than, from what I'm aware, most people don't. And I think my favorite thing about this show was that it doesn't end in integration. It doesn't really end at all. Like, it kind of leaves you off wondering, like, well, what's going to happen next? Is there going to be another series, or what are we going to do? Like, what, is it done? I don't know. You also really get to learn about the other alters, and you get to grow sort of an appreciation for them just as much as the characters and the main character do in the series. I really liked that about that series. Also, there's lots of good things to say about this series. Um, it is written and directed by a woman who also has DID, so she knows firsthand what it's like, and I'm sure this is probably taken from her own personal experiences, and I would totally understand it. I don't think that she really wanted it to be dramatized as much as it was, but you kind of have to sacrifice that for viewership, you know. And it was a, I think a Stars or HBO. I think it was Stars. Maybe it was TMC. I don't know, but it's available on Hulu. Um, all 3 seasons. They're all really great. Now, the uh, last movie that I'm going to share with you is called Frankie and Alice, and it's a very good movie. I watched it, I actually illegally watched it because I tend to not want to pay for movies because I'm a bad kid. And I watched this movie not knowing what to expect because I'd really keep pretty darn low expectations for any kind of movie like this, or any movie that involves anybody with DID or any kind of highly stigmatized mental illness. So I was very pleasantly surprised. There are a couple issues that I had with it, but I think that's just because they didn't really want to delve too far into it, because it might not have been rated the way that it was. I'm pretty sure it was a PG-13 movie, and if they delved a little further into it, it might have been rated a little higher. I don't know. I don't really know. But it centers around a character, and her name is Frankie, and she lives during the 1970s era. And it's actually based off a true story, and it makes it very obviously that this is a true story in the credits and in the beginning of the movie. And she is going about her life with amnesia, and she's almost completely unaware of her dissociative personality states. And it also delves into the what it feels like to be diagnosed, which it doesn't go into like incredibly descriptively, but you could definitely feel it whenever it happens and you watch it on the screen. You're like, oh man, I know that feeling. I know that feeling. It's when you go crazy and you're just like, I'm crazy and there's nothing I can do about it. But it's a really good movie. Um, it also delves into a little bit of trauma. Uh, I personally kind of found a little bit of fault in this, but that's just because it didn't delve into it as much as I would expect, and it kind of cut the age range off a little bit later than I thought. But granted, it was during a different time period, so I'm only led to assume that because she is African American during the 70s, she was obviously a child during the 50s and the 60s, and she's only like 21 or whatever in the 70s, so she probably experienced some very harsh things during that time period, being the race that she was. And it doesn't show or portray that, so I just assume that that's what happened, and unpleasant things happened to her when she was younger, and which ends up leading to a defining trauma, and that is actually portrayed in the movie that you get to see and you get to delve into. And again, I like this movie because it delves into the psychiatric side too, and it delves into the beginnings of EMDR. I think that's what it's called. Um, it's like hypnotherapy, but it's not. There's like some other thing that you do. Uh, like shine a light and then make you follow their fingers or whatever. Never done it before. Kind of scared, but it delves into that, and it shows um, some ways that doctors and therapists treat and learn about DID, and it also doesn't end with integration. It actually very obviously states, I mean, it's written, but it's pretty darn obvious that she does not live integratedly. She doesn't live an integrated life. She continues on going to therapy and learning to heal and all that sort of wonderful stuff that we all want to be able to do eventually. And I keep looking in the camera, in the screen behind me, and thinking that there's a person behind me, but there's really not. It's just me being weird because it's 1:03 in the morning and this video is 20 minutes long, so I'm gonna finish it. So there you go. Those are the movies that I would totally recommend for those last three are the ones that I would 110% recommend anybody who has a friend who has DID, who has a family member or their spouse or partner or whatever in your a relationship with somebody who has that disorder. I think that those would be really great movies to watch because they're accurate and they they um, they tell very realistic stories, and they also don't make us out to be violent criminals who murder and or cannibalize people. So um, first three, recommend 110%. The previous three, no, uh, no, don't watch those unless you have a strong um, understanding of yourself, and you don't get upset by people and seeing movies and just general media that portrays you as a monster in any way. I don't like watching that. I don't like seeing that Hollywood likes to turn me into a freaking chainsaw massacre killer or psycho or whatever, you know? So don't recommend those. And then Me, Myself, and Irene kind of stands there in the middle, being cute and funny and not really any of the above. So watch that if you want to be like in a good mood, but you also aren't looking for a super serious film that's like hard hitting and about trauma and about serial killers or anything. You want to see something funny and cute and funny that involves DID or at least multiple personalities in some form. I think that movie was made sometime in the 90s, and I don't know when they changed the name from MPD to DID. I'm pretty sure it was in 89, but I will get back to you on that. And so that is it. It was nice talking to you. Jodie. See ya.